is awesome with Chinese food.
I warned you guys.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, let's see. Where is the other one that I want?
Sounds really good right now.
I already did that one. I don't think I showed you this one. This is a close-up then of the nerves. So this is the nostril again. Can you see this screen?
Not yet. So the cool thing though about you sharing these is we can apply this to our halter bridle fit too.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of pieces of tack that even some really big name trainers are using, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's sitting right on top of the facial crest, which is skin on bone and nerves over bone. And you know, our horses just they just tolerate it. And if we are more mindful of these things, we can get better answers from them because they're able to focus on our question.
Marianne, did you have a question?
Yeah, off of Tiffany, what she just said, it plays in the part of halter and bridle fit, of course, but I'm wondering, one that particularly popped in my brain was the figure eight.
Yeah.
Does that put pressure onto those facial nerves down there, or like how does that?
I mean, you're going to have pressure anywhere. I think.
Do you feel like it's excessive for its placing, or like or it's okay and like has its purpose? Like, because that made that when you pointed out, you know, seeing those nerves down there and stuff like that, I was like, oh. Okay.
Yeah. Is my screen currently up with a close-up of those nerves? I don't think it came up. I can see it, but I don't think you guys can see it.
It didn't come up.
Okay, let me try one more time. If not, I think I made my point. So you're not going to avoid all the nerves.
Okay.
Did that come up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is a close-up then. This is the nostril kind of being pulled forward. This is the mouth. And then again, this is all these nerves here. You're not going to completely avoid nerves. You know, my personal thoughts is I don't ever use any kind of drop or flash nose bands, and I never have. So I can't actually say I have a whole lot of experience with them. I'm just not a fan. And then the more I see this kind of stuff, then I really am not a fan. So I'm probably not the person to say that, you know, they have a purpose, just because I'm a little bit biased that I don't use them. Some of the indicators that something is not agreeing with your horse as far as fit would be that when you take it off, they yawn and they yawn and they yawn and they yawn, or that they really want to rub their face. That's another indicator that this is really irritating to them. Katrina, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, if a nerve got damaged, like does a nerve grow back, and how long does it take for like a nerve to grow back? And I guess, you know, there are cases where nerves don't grow back. So I guess, is that like if they get severed or something?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I'm the person to answer this. Like, I think I have heard that it can take a year or more for nerves to figure out where they want to go, like after some kind of bad injury, you know, and the nerves have to regenerate, that it can take a year or more. And then I know when they do the nerving thing for lower leg issues, you know, where they cut the nerves, that is not a permanent solution. Oftentimes it has to be redone, but it usually lasts a couple of years. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's the only answer I have.
Yeah, that's good.
Christy, do you have a question?
I was going to make a comment on the figure eight, because I've done a good bit of research on bridles, and at least if you're using a figure eight, it doesn't impede the breathing. It doesn't close off the nostrils. And if you place it right, it should be more ergonomic than if you're using just a drop note, well, not a drop, but a flash. Drop, I know drops are popular. Well, they were popular. And I hear good things about them, but they do sit lower on the nostrils. So for like a jumping horse, they'd probably restrict breathing pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty
Did
bad.
you do the thing where you close off just the top, just lightly close off the top of your nostril and then take a deep breath?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how much it does. So the horses have these muscles that were labeled in some of the pictures, the nasolabialis, and it pulls the nostrils open, you know, when the nostrils flare. But you can, if you push on their face in a certain spot, it will do that. But then also too, if you are restricting it, then those muscles have to work even harder to try to open the nostrils, which they can only open them so much if there's anything pulled over the top of them. So it's just something to think about, but I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole because, yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I said no, thank you. I was
see.
genuinely curious about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah, cool. So I showed you how to fit cavessons. Let me show you a picture of one on a live horse. If I can screen share again. Okay, did a picture of my horse pop up?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is the cavesson I was telling you that I like to use all the time. One of the things that I'm not a big fan on this cavesson is that this part right here on this cavesson is movable. I don't know if you can see that in my little thumbnail over there. So it moves. And the idea is that then you can line it up with the eye, but in practicality, what often happens is that this piece slides down. So just things to think about if you're thinking about purchasing a cavesson. You know, they all have their pros and cons. That's the only thing I don't really like about that cavesson. Otherwise, it functions quite well. I like that the straps are thin because then I've got less bulk on the horse's face because they, you know, their face is not, there's not that much room. This cheek strap here, the purpose of it, you put it in line about with the eye and you buckle it up snug. So it's not in the throat latch because you don't want to do it tight there, but you can see I have this fairly snug here. And what it does is when you have your lunge line or if you're just doing work in hand and you just have a rein there, when you have this clip on here and you put pressure to turn them for the stelling and to get that rotation of their skull, it doesn't just slide the cavesson on their nose and pull the opposite side up into their eye. Does that make sense? Because I see a lot of people using cavessons improperly where they don't have this tight enough and they're lunging the horse and they don't realize it because they can't see this eye over here, that they're pulling the cavesson up into the eyeball by twisting the whole cavesson on the horse's nose. Does that make sense? So that's what this strap is here for. Don't think that it goes in the throat and that it needs to be loose. It needs to be snug. And actually, this cavesson, the thing that I'm looking for in someone to make me cavessons is that I want a bit longer noseband because I'm not thrilled with the placement of this strap. Actually, I would like it to be a bit lower. It's a bit up by his facial crest, actually. And I have yet to find a cavesson maker that is making that nose strap long enough, but also giving me the other features that I want in a cavesson. So Sam has one coming, a fairly custom one. So we're going to see how that looks. And I might be going with her to make cavessons. But there's a lot of cavessons out there that are already on the market. They're perfectly usable. I'm just super picky. Let's see. Oh, you know what I wanted to do is I wanted to Google cavessons and show you what not to get just to save you some money because so many people go out and get a cavesson that is not ideal. Okay, so do you just see Google on my page?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I just typed in cavesson. Do you see these nylon padded things that have popped up here? Do you see these are like $30, $40 cavessons? Mm-hmm. Don't even waste your money.
Oh yeah, I did that actually. I wasted my money on those.
Yeah, all they do is slide around on the horse's face. They are not clear. I had a lady that got a leather, I think she got this one and it actually like just fell apart. Like she used it for like 2 months and it just literally fell apart. So don't get those because they just, you're not any better off than just having a halter. This one's at Dover. This is kind of like the other one that I have. So it's got a lot of padding in there and it's got the metal on the outside. That's a decent cavesson. Let's see.
Now, Deanna, with I think some of you know that I sell Hidalgo saddles and we do work with Marhoman in Spain and they have a bike chain Cavesson, which is actually really nice, but
Yes.
there are some things on it, like Deanna was saying, that I'd like to change. I am able to order them custom size. So if I can receive
Oh,
some
cool.
off your horse, then it can be done. The thing is, it's a custom made piece, so it can take 6 to 8 weeks to come in, because they're handmade. And that's pretty, that's the consensus. I've been talking with some clients because I know a lot of people, it's spring, they're wanting to get out in the arena with their horse. And so just as a favor, I've been looking around to see if there's a company that can get them to them faster than I can. And to have one that's a good quality, that's going to fit well, the wait time is just, it's weeks.
Hmm.
Unless you get, a mass produced one that may or may not work,
Yeah. And the Marhamans ones are really nice. And I didn't realize that you could get them custom to the size that you want. And that's a really good point, is that you can't just go to Dover or Smart Pack or any of those and get the kind of Cavesson I'm talking about. They're just not super popular in the US. So all of the Cavessons that I like and I recommend and I use all come from Europe. And they all are going to run you $100 to $200, like, well, probably more like $150 to $200. So I'm just putting it out there that, don't spend the money on the $40 ones, because you're not going to be happy with them. There was a question that popped up. What is her name? Oh, yes. Jillian Kreinbring. Yeah, Jillian Kreinbring is fantastic. She has a functional anatomy course online. Actually, Jillian, I don't know if you, some of you guys are local. I know Jillian, and I've taken her course, and I was with her last month, and she actually said that when my facility is built, that she would come teach her functional anatomy course at my place. Yeah, so probably 2023, because it's my place is not built yet, and she gets way more requests than she's willing to do. She'll do a couple places around the country a year, and her class is fantastic. But she also teaches online, and then she has the monthly serrator review, which is, I think it's like $17 a month, and she does a video in there every month. So yeah, Jillian is amazing if you want to know more about functional anatomy, and she talks about Cavessons at one point as well. She's definitely a good source. And then the other question is, would you prefer that the side rings be further apart, more on the side of the nose? No, those are more like a side pole. And I have seen some combination pieces that do have more of the side pole ones over there. And actually you can use that then for riding as well, as opposed to the ones that are more on the side. It just kind of depends. Like if you have a horse that is kind of bracy in the pole, that tends to like poke its nose more out with things, a horse with that does that, and you've had the pieces on the side, you're not going to get that relaxation at the pole and the stelling by having it further out. Where my horse is super flexible at the pole, he actually is too flexible at the pole, where he tends to like go behind the bit all the time. Not even the bit, because I'm not using the bit, but he goes behind the vertical often. He would be okay in something like that because he's just so supple at the pole. Where sometimes having them more where they are on the Cavessons, if you're not careful with the horse like that, they will curl up and they will go kind of behind the vertical, but that's not the majority of horses. The majority of horses that I work with are very stiff in the pole, and they just are poking their nose out. Christy.
So Micklem, the Micklem ergonomic bridles, they have one that's got a top ring. Is that a good device to use as an alternate Cavesson? Yeah,
so it depends what you want to do, because like Sam just bought, and she doesn't have it yet, but she bought a Cavesson combo that has the bit straps on it, like the one I showed you down here that has the bit straps on it. Because if you like to do your groundwork and your work in hand with this, or you like to lunge with this, which is what the Micklem one has on it for lunging, then you don't have to go change into a bridle then, because you can already have the bit. You can put the whole thing on, the bit's in the horse's mouth, but you can ride from here. The other thing that I really like to do is use your bit down here, and you can use, like, instead of using a double bridle with a snaffle and a leverage, a curb bit, you can just do a curb bit down here for your telescoping. And then instead of having a snaffle, you can use the rings on the Cavesson for your stelling. So this will give you the effect of a snaffle. So if you ride with a double bridle, Tiffany, am I just blowing your mind right now? I saw like
No, I
this
was
head
doing
tilt.
selling in my head. In my, literally.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that I didn't think about. So the Micklem, yeah, they have it up here and they just have it, I think, on the one spot. So it's for lunging because, you know, I don't like to lunge with a bit unless the horse really knows their job. Like my lesson horses, when I was doing a lot of lessons and providing the horses, my horses knew their job and they were never, ever going to pull on that lunge line. So I would hook the bit or the lunge line to the bit. But the majority of horses, I never, ever want to lunge with a bit because if they spook or they do something and then you're just pulling that bit right through their mouth. So do I need to talk any more about that idea of instead of a double bridle, we do a cavesson and a curb? Has anybody got questions on that? Because that's kind of a good point. I like that. No, it's crickets.
At least it's not tomatoes.
I know, that's the great thing about virtual.
My horse is not anywhere close to that, so.
Yeah, yeah. If I was a horse, I mean, I've ridden in double bridles and it just seems like so much stuff to have in a horse's mouth. And some horses, their anatomy in their mouth just does not accommodate that. Some horses have a shallow palate, some have very fleshy lips, some have a really fat tongue. I just can't imagine that if I were a horse, I would want to have 2 bits in my mouth, maybe not even 1 bit in my mouth, depending on who's riding, but I just feel like 2 is a lot to have as far as accommodating the space. It's not that it's like inhumane. I just feel like that's a lot of stuff in their mouth that I really like just having a simple curb and then the cavesson for the stelling. All right, have I bored everyone enough? But do we have questions? I think that's all the information that I had.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So if we were to work this into like our writing work, what's a good way to combine the two? Would it be to like start off doing some groundwork and then get on and practice bending, or?
Yeah, I definitely like to explain it to the horse from the ground because it's so much easier for them, 1, to understand it, and 2, to accommodate the request because they're not also carrying your weight. So I always do a little groundwork before I get on, and it doesn't have to be excessive. If I do 5 or 10 minutes just to, you know, do my pre-flight check, which Tiffany knows why it's a pre-flight check, but I like to make sure all my things are there before I get on, and then the horse. And my horse understands these things, but then I may introduce something that we're working on that's a bit harder for him that I'm not going to ask him to do while also carrying me. You know, like when I first started teaching him half path, we do it from the ground so he can organize his body and build the strength without then having the burden of carrying me at the same time. So you can do some of that from the ground and then do it in the saddle. I also, I like if you want to do even if you wanted to just do a snaffle bit with also the cavesson, you can have 2 sets of reins and just decide which ones you want to use. So maybe you're just using the cavesson reins and you have quite a drape in the reins that's on your bit, no matter what kind of bit it is. And I've done that with my horse because he's not a big fan of using a bit. And so I'm like, do you think maybe you would like to try it? And so I just let him carry the bit and it has reins on it, but I'm only riding him off of the cavesson pressure, which is I mean, that's what I'll do with my baby too.
So so I'm going to get a horse. Actually, this did just kind of happen to me. I have a friend who's loaning me her horse who's been retired or pasture pet for probably at least 5 years. And she's super, we're very similar because we slouch a lot. And so this is going to be the first thing I'm going to go to with her is the cavesson, because this is a good way to introduce her thoracic sling to her in very short, quick increments. And so I guess for people that aren't aware of why do I even need one, this sounds like a whole lot of work. Well, I'm going to do this because the more I can strengthen her and get her in good posture, she's going to have more strength to carry me on her back. She's going to be more balanced. And when she's trying to compensate for my imbalances, she's going to be more prepared for that. Because if I went out and got her saddled up and hopped on right now, she'd probably be able to do it, but it's not going to be pretty, and she's going to be the one paying the price and trying to support me when she really can't even support herself in a healthy way right now, other than eating her food and going out to the pasture and being lazy. That's what she
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
And they
So
were never designed to be ridden, you know, and that's why we have to educate them to carry themselves in a way that's healthier for them. And actually, so, you know, in the US, everyone just starts a horse in a snaffle. And in Europe and all the grandmasters, they always educated the horses in a cavesson so that you're preserving the mouth, because really you can't change the horse's posture and their center of mass through their mouth. Okay. Because they're chewing on it. They don't know, they're bracing their jaw in response to it. They have no idea. But that cavesson, it's less distracting for them than a bit initially. And you can just align the spine easier with a cavesson, in my opinion, than you can a bit. And so that's what everybody does in Europe, and all the grandmasters did that then we preserve the mouth. And once the horse is educated, we can use this bit in a very fine and refined and gentle way, because the horse is already skilled in using their thoracic sling and balancing themselves right to left, because they've become more ambidextrous through the work that we've done with them. Marianne says, how do you ask for a half in a cavesson? So are you saying half halt, or do you mean, I mentioned half pass? So let me know what you meant on that.
Just halt. Couldn't spell.
Oh, how do you ask for a halt in a cavesson? So again, I like to do everything from the ground first, because I think it's easier on the horse, and it's easier on me too, because I'm not even that old, but the older I get, the less I feel like riding horses that are pushy and pull and brace and all that stuff. So from the ground, let me grab a cavesson.
And the only reason I ask is because I noticed the rings are on the top. And so I am so accustomed to asking from a halt from under in the chin. So yeah. I'm just not sure.
So if I just push like this, most horses are either going to brace against me in the pull and it's going to feel really hard, or they're going to yield and just go behind the vertical. But that's often the case. I mean, usually I think in bits, they tend to brace more than go behind the vertical in my experience. Yeah. Okay, so I'm working my horse and I'm going along with him. Oh, I'm losing my earbuds.
don't go along too far.
I know I can't put this horse on much more than a 6-meter circle. So I'm gonna put a little bit of pressure on the cavesson, not because I'm trying to simply apply enough force to stop the horse, but just to give them a signal that this pressure, this little bit of feel that you have on the cavesson means something. And then I explain it with the whip at the chest and block them. I'll just put this across their path and like, whoop, and they kind of go like this. And if they don't, I do a little tap, tap and say, hey, because their head is just following their center of mass. It's their center of mass that's pushing forward, and their neck is just the first thing out there because it's attached to their body. So I don't actually make them stop through the cavesson. I put pressure, and this is how you should do it even with the bridle anyways. You shouldn't be trying to physically stop them with a bit. It's a signal, it's a cue. So I put this pressure, this half halt, I close my fingers, I stop my body. And if that is not enough, then I explain what this means by blocking the horse. And I will also kind of close my body off. So the horse is walking this way, I'm walking along with it. I say, whoa, and then I bring my whip across. That makes sense? I'm going along with the horse. I say, whoa, I put a little pressure, and I close off their path with my body. I hope this is making sense, because Marianne's the only one talking to me.
Yeah, no, it does. Like it makes much more sense than what I imagined in my head. Like what I imagined in my head was something along the lines of like, I don't know, like mimicking a rein and like pulling up and like back towards like, you know, I don't know. I don't even know. I had something completely different in my head. I'm glad I asked that.
Yeah. So usually my half halts, I kind of feel like I'm half halting a little bit up and back towards their withers, almost as if I'm going through them. but sometimes they'll just shorten their neck until they understand that that pressure means shift your center of mass back. And that's why I use that whip then to block their chest and say, hey, keep your neck long. This is just a cue that means stop your body. And then sometimes you might feel like you need to invite them down a bit. Like if they start getting a little bit too scrunched up in their neck, then you might do a little half halt, inviting them just down a bit to stretch and open their neck back up, because that is actually what I'm talking about Saturday at Avalon. And Tiffany will be there as well, talking about anatomy affecting saddle fit. But we're talking about proper and improper movement and healthy biomechanics and how to train your eye to see those things, because a horse should always move with length in their neck, because that the neck is the most delicate part of the horse's body, and it's the part of the body that gets the most damaged because of our ignorance. And I don't mean ignorance in a bad way, but we often don't know what we don't know. And so at the end of the month, actually at Avalon, I'm talking about the anatomy of the neck, and that one's really cool as well. So you have a better understanding of what we're doing to the horse's neck and how we can preserve that so they have more comfort and vitality and usefulness for a much longer period of time, because almost every domestic horse develops osteoarthritis in the base of its neck. Tiffany says we need to mention, oh, the virtual group class. Yes. You want to, yeah, why don't you talk about that, Tiffany, because this is something we don't have it set up yet.
Okay.
Oh, wait, you would like me to do the explaining?
You forgot that note. Okay, so basically, was it last year, I was invited to a class to audit that Sam, she's joining us tonight, and Deanna take part in. And their instructor, Carolyn, can you tell just a real short description of, what type of classes do you take online, because your trainers aren't here in the States?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I work with Carolyn Moldenhauer, who is in Germany, and she's a certified straightness training instructor. And I worked with her in person for the first time in 2019. And I took my horse, I'm in Illinois, and I took my horse to Alabama because he's a handful and there was no one here that could help me. Like, he's the kind of horse, and I have a trainer friend that is actually highly sought after trainer that she said in the wrong hands, he'd end up in a slaughterhouse because he is slightly insane. So, I mean, I was realizing this horse was almost 5 years old and I was getting stuff accomplished with him, but there was a lot of stuff that I was just like, I need help and I don't know where to go. And for me to say that is a big deal. And for me to not know who to go to, because I know a lot of people, but I didn't know anybody that would be able to help me with this horse and not mess him up more. So I talked to Carolyn and I told her what was going on. And I said, do you think you can help with this? And she said, oh yeah. She's like, well, I worked with the bullfighting lines of horses. He's bullfighting lines in Andalusian. And she's like, I worked with them in Spain. And she's like, they are hot, hot, hot. And I had the confidence to take this velociraptor of a horse and put him in a trailer and drive him all the way to Alabama, which pushes me way out of my comfort zone to haul a horse that far. But that is how fantastic she is. And she's actually going to come here too at some point when I have my facility done. But I drove him to Alabama in 2019 and I loved her and she was fantastic. And she gave me so many tools to help me with him. And so I was supposed to go back in 2020. And then a week before, it was March 2020, and a week before, international flights were banned. So it went on pause. And so I had been working with her online every month for the last 2 or 3 years, almost 3 years. And then I just went back to Alabama with him 2 weeks ago, I guess, and saw her again in person. But I work with her every month and I just, whatever I'm working on and I need help with. So I take video. I have like one of those tracking cameras and I clip out the parts that I'm like, okay, I've got this. Where do I need to go next? Or what do you think about this? Should I change this? And we meet online and she goes over it moment by moment and then she'll play it back. She'll say, okay, right here. And then she'll go back to see how here he started to fall on his inside shoulder, which is what caused up here to happen. And I'm like, yes. And it's such a great way to learn that I like both. I like in person, but I almost like virtual better because I don't need someone there physically helping me all the time, you know, because if you can handle your horse, you don't need someone there like lunging you or leading you or whatever. But it's phenomenal. And then we can work together and we can play those moments back. And I can see it from that third party perspective instead of being in the moment with the horse where you're trying to get the horse not to dance around and they're trying to explain something to you and you're holding your horse and he's trying to eat grass or he's grabbing your coat or whatever. You can completely focus and then we can record it and I can play it back. So I go back out and I do my stuff and I think I understood what she told me to do and I'm practicing it out there with my horse and then I come back and I'm like, I watch it again. I'm like, yes, that's what she was talking about. Now I get it and I can go do it again. So it's a great way for me to learn. And I work with some people around the country doing that for them as well, because, you know, if you like, I have a different way of doing things and I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but if you're not local and you still want to work with me, that is always an option.
So what Deanna and I talked about is offering the same sort of platform. I was just an auditor because I didn't have a horse that I could submit video with, but just me watching the other writers who did submit video and watching Carolyn go through moment by moment with them, it was really encouraging to see everybody else struggle. I liked it. But we're not alone, and I learned off of what the instructor was telling them and watching how their horse was reacting. And so Deanna and I talked, and I think we're going to offer the same sort of thing here. We're going to start a Facebook group and we'll announce, you know, the dates and how to submit your videos. There will be fees involved if you're going to participate with your horse and submit video, or if you just wanted to audit. But I think that would be a really good way for us to all come together and learn and not be so restricted with travel and fuel expenses. And, you know, a lot of us work full time. Some of us have 2 jobs. We have kids. It's just a way to do this on your own time. And then you'll have, like Deanna said, that footage that you can just keep and refer to and compare to and not have all the distractions. So once we get that group set up, I'll send out a link for you guys. You're welcome to join and participate and submit videos.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So sometimes I work with Carolyn privately and it's more expensive and it's longer. It's, you know, I send in longer video, but then what I do every month actually is there is a group of us that are all over the world actually that are doing straightness training, and we submit 2 to 3 minutes of video, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're working on something specific, you just have to clip out those moments that you want. And then she'll spend 15 or 20 minutes going over that video where then we can all see everybody's stuff, which is great for me, for myself, but also as a trainer, because even if there's a horse that is complete opposite of mine, it's just my horse is hyper flexible and springy and, you know, and very sensitive. But then there's people in the group that have horses that are very calm, dull as far as just ignoring your half halts. They're very long in the frame, but it's nice because I work with people that have horses like that too. So even though it doesn't apply to my horse, I listen to the things that they get because I'm like, that really makes sense and I can see that. And yeah, I'm never done learning. Do we have any other questions? Hopefully I covered enough stuff about Cavessons. If not, if there's something burning you want to know, now is the moment.
You must have done a really good job.
Either we wowed them or bored them and they're all
I don't know.
No, wowed.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Any other questions there? Or should we wrap it up? Do we want to say anything? I don't know. We've got a couple local people in here. I think Christy is at the barn that we're doing. So Saturday, I'm doing a class on proper and improper movement, training your eye. And Tiffany will be there as well, doing the anatomy that affects saddle fit and how you can look at how your saddle fits your horse. And then what else do we have coming up?
So in May, I know Megan's on here. She's in Michigan. We'll be going to Parma, Michigan on the 21st of May, and we're going to do a whole day clinic there as well. I don't know if there's anybody else from that event that's in here, but we're looking forward to that.
And then April, I think it's the 30th, it's the last Saturday in April, I'll be at Avalon talking about the equine neck used and abused, just talking about how it's a structure that we don't realize how much damage we do to it and how we can avoid doing that damage to build a healthy horse that stays healthy for a long time. And then a lot of these people on here are not local. So Tiffany and I were talking about potentially doing some of these classes online that I teach in person. Those would not be free events, but I could teach them online and share my PowerPoints and my props and stuff on there as well. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, let us know, because we can set that up at some point on Zoom as well. So I don't want to pressure anybody, but can't do everything for free. Happy to do what I can, but you know, there's bills and those bones aren't free.
No, that's fair, Deanna. It's okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Let's
Thank
see.
you so much.
You're welcome. It looks like we have thank yous in the thing. Thank you guys for your feedback. Extremely informative, excited to venture into utilize Cavessons in the future. Yeah, let us know if you guys end up doing something like that, or even if you're looking online to buy a Cavesson and you're like, is this what you were talking about? Just send a picture of it to me or Tiffany and we'll be like, yep, that's what we were talking about. Or yeah, maybe that one you might not like, or whatever. Like, we're happy to give you our opinion on that.
Yeah, because I've definitely bought all the wrong ones, and I should have bought them. They're terrible.
Yeah, and you don't want to waste your money on those just because you won't be happy with them.
And you don't even want to buy the wrong one to try out, because then you're screwing yourself up.
Yeah.
And I have a Cavesson that was made by John Ogle in the United States, and it's held up very well.
Yes.
And it fits my difficult horse.
Yes. He's the only one in the US that I know of that is making Cavessons. It's Ogle Saddlery, O-G-L-E, Ogle Saddlery. And he makes really nice Cavessons. Several of my clients have bought Cavessons and he can custom make them for you. So I should mention him because he does nice work. And again, they're about, yeah.
I think they've gone up.
The Cavessons with the rigid wire that doesn't bend.
I would stay away from those because they're not bad. I mean, I don't think they're bad in the wrong hands, but I think you have to be very,
right hands,
very soft. Oh yeah. I don't think they're bad in the right hands, but you need to be very soft and very mindful of your pressure and release. And I just find that most people I work with are not there yet. So I would go with a little bit more benign Cavesson. So either the bike chain with some leather, because that does have a little bite as well, or the leather ones, because you're going to have this need to get your refinement down. And if you have a really young, uneducated horse too, I would go with a softer one to start.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks, ladies.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I hope you guys liked it. I hope I didn't talk your ears off.
We will be in touch.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Bye.
All right.